We are going to start our meeting.
Probably some mirror option.
407.
4:07. Just want to make sure that we are broadcasting, so if Mark or Tim would give me a thumbs up, I'll know for sure.
Nope.
Can you hear us? Mark,
Yeah.
can you hear us, Tim?
No.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can we hear them?
They're
I don't
they're
think he-
muted.
Sort of.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
All right.
Mary Ann, check and see if they can hear you, because they didn't respond to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Can't tell whether we're muted for broadcast.
Doesn't Tim look distinguished now with
right.
the fuzzy face?
Good afternoon. We'll open the meeting a little bit behind schedule. Today, we're going to have Deirdre taking notes
Thank you.
and announcements.
Approval of the minutes.
That's what's missing. Thank you.
What?
Thank you. That's what's missing. We have minutes from the last meeting that went out, I believe, with the agenda.
I think they went out like hours after last meeting.
They did. That's right, because you sent them to everybody.
Yep.
Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Are there any corrections? If not, I have just one small one. I think it's on this one. No, it was the other committee, sorry.
I remember they looked good to me when I looked at them.
No, it's Conservation Commission. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the last
So
meeting.
moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
All right.
Okay. Approved. Announcements. Basically, I sent out, I assume everybody's got a copy of the new agenda that went out today. We will talk about it further down on the agenda. But I wanted to get that information out, which went regarding a grant we'd like to talk about today. The one thing is, I look at the meeting, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get through everything, because it looks pretty packed. So let's play it by ear and address the things that we have to do immediately, and move on to our sustainability plan at the end, I think. Currently, we have a couple of engineering projects that we've gotten grants on that are in process. I want to let you know that the Dingley Island and Lowell's Cove Road is going to have its kickoff meeting on June 18th, which is in just about 2 weeks, at 5 p.m. We'd love for all of you to be here if you could.
Here? It's
Here at in this meeting room. All the postcards went out today. So we'll see what kind of a turnout we get for that. And then that will be the kickoff for Gerald Palmer to start working on the project. Because ideally, we're trying to get it finished, their work finished by the end of the year. And Abner Point Road and Bethel Point Road, Mark and I have a meeting scheduled with Gerald Palmer for Thursday for an update on that. And we're going to do that by Zoom. If there is anyone else that is interested in sitting in on that, let me know and I'll make sure you get the Zoom link. And that gets us down to the Resilience Grant opportunity. Well, Ken, you were part of the meeting this year too. There is a grant. There is a very, very substantial,
Call it, includes construction is the
the
magic
Maine
words.
Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. It's one of the few grants that will take care of not only engineering but also construction. And the great part of it is it'll pay up to a lot of money. I have it here, but I can't find it. It's up to a million or 4 million, right? Yeah. So basically, there was a meeting yesterday with the town planner and Paul Plummer and Ken as town lands to talk about if this might be a project that we could take advantage of. Now, the biggest problem is there's a lot going on right now in town with grants and work. And I had suggested to Christie, even though it's got a very short time frame, like 1 month, that I would talk with the committee to see if people here are interested in following through on this, and probably together we can pull this together to have available to go. Ken, you had some thoughts that you were going to do.
Well, I think, in one discussion with Mark yesterday, I think, if I'm, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the interpretation is that the work we're proposing for Lookout Point would meet this grant, but it wasn't the primary target of it.
No.
But we had some chance of getting it because they sort of hold back funds specifically for small towns. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yeah, let me just provide a little background.
Yeah.
The state has created this infrastructure grant program that has $50 or $60 million in it, I believe. And the grant program is targeted at making municipal facilities more sustainable, particularly sewage treatment and water distribution facilities. It also includes transportation facilities, and these are facilities that have to be owned by a municipality or a sewer and water district or some such thing. The maximum amount of an individual grant is $4 million. The grant can pay for up to 95% of the cost of the project. I said to Marianne earlier today that this is probably a stretch in terms of the purpose of the grant, but my sense is we could make an argument for the improvement of Lookout Point Road and the boat launch, since one of the priorities, if you will, in the grant is that the project contributes to economic and community benefit. And I think we could probably make a pretty good case for the boat launch, providing for access to the water for harvesters who use it regularly, and that we're improving a transportation link that would lead to an improved access. It's probably a long shot. It probably will see a lot of competition from the, I'm going to call it, big players who are faced with having sewage treatment plants in areas that face inundation, what have you. But in previous discussions with the Maine Department of Transportation, and it's kind of reflected in the statement of purpose, is their goal is to spread this money around the state. So in the past, when we talked about some other transportation projects, the state said, well, you know, we always kind of hold back 5 or 10% for the small communities. So it might be worth taking a shot at it, particularly since we have the preliminary engineering already done, which includes assessment of the impacts of sea level rise and how often access to the road and the boat launch could be compromised. so that was sort of the idea. What Mary Ann didn't say is that the deadline for applications is July 1st, which is 4 weeks from today. And so I guess the question is whether it makes sense to put some effort into putting together a quality application.
I think a point too that I highlighted from the grant itself, points that I thought we could tack onto, as far as it is a transportation by water for Clamors.
It's transportation, it's working waterfront.
It's working waterfront,
It's recreation in addition to that.
right.
And we have the design. I think the other thing, I think it could not, the work had to be done not just to do repairs, which it does need, but it had to be to make it more resilient. And there again, we have our design already for that purpose.
Right. And now Mark is going to get contact with the new engineers that we're working with, not Laurel Palmer on land, but the engineers we're working with for the boat launch. And I would give it the name, but I always get it wrong. But anyhow, it's the same company that Barney Baker used to work for.
Or it's the one that bought him out, I guess.
Yeah. And basically, to get a sense of, I have to share that, by the way, what the cost will be for them to do what we're trying to do here. We have this baseline that was done in 2016, and have them take a quick look to see if we could get a fair scope of work from them that would give us an idea of what the project cost would be. Got it right there, Mark?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess today what I thought about, is this something, well, we have to pull this together, and I'm thinking between, if there's a few of us that are interested in working on it, I think it's a possibility that we could pull this together and get it written up. We would need to go to the selectmen at their next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today. We would have to have a pretty strong idea at that point of what the grant would entail. And depending on the amount, we don't even have any idea of what we're going to be asking for at this point. Then we could proceed from there to finish it up if we didn't have it completely ready to go at that meeting, because we have it another week after that.
2 weeks from today or 2 weeks from Thursday?
2 weeks from Thursday, I'm sorry.
I've been sort of assuming that this is we have to provide 5% match.
Right.
And I assume that this would be something we could use our SPIR.
I would think so,
funds for.
as long as it's not a $3 million project.
No, I
Then
mean.
it wouldn't cover it.
It would hope that, if you want to be pessimistic, you might say, all right, we're doubling from 2016. That still puts us $500,000 range.
That's right.
And so 5% could easily be covered from.
Right, exactly. So is there any comments you'd like to?
I think we ought to go for it.
It seems like it's too good opportunity. I know Mark wasn't terribly optimistic, but unless it's, we're talking lottery odds, it seems like we should
never know.
try.
We never know.
If we don't ask, we won't get it.
That's
So
true.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
I'm wondering, Jay?
Well, just recapping, the reason Lookout Point is what you're looking at is because there's a plan already,
Yes,
so to do it this quickly.
exactly, yeah.
And I went to the first meeting on this, and they really stressed that resiliency, not just repair, but
Yeah,
resiliency.
that's
And that's
one of
part
the
of
key
the plan,
requirements.
so.
And that was original plan was for that. Now, the ramp is in desperate need of repair, and I think we could make the argument that it was further degraded by the January storms.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and
we-
the ramp has to go into the water.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it can't be.
But it was 3 parts, as I recall, and in fact, that grant, and I meant to do it, is on the website, under Environment, and roads in there. That grant is there, and I don't remember the amount. Do you remember?
For the engineering work?
That was on that grant. I don't remember the
Yeah.
amount.
I remember being surprised it wasn't more.
I know, I was too.
I want to say it was under 10,000.
That's what I'm thinking too.
7,000, something like that.
But there's, if you're not familiar with Lookout Point, there is a town piece of property on the right that is a parking lot. There is a town landing.
Yeah.
And I think the third part of the project was going to be, there's that island that has a house on it, and then
Yeah.
right out in there, there's two kind of twin islands.
Twin Islands, and they're owned by the owner of that house.
Right.
They are private.
And they were going to do some kind of a barrier. I'm sorry, Peter, you wanted to say something?
Tim has raised his hand.
Oh,
Oh.
thank you. I was going to ask somebody to tell me. Tim?
Still muted.
Tim, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your explanation, Mary Ann. I had put my hand up earlier, but anyway, I was just going to say what everyone else has said, but I just wanted to pipe in and say it's so fantastic to have an opportunity that includes some construction. And I know it's a short period of time, but I think as an example of what this committee has been talked about is like what we want to be positioning ourselves to do. This seems like a perfect opportunity. So I'm all on board to try to meet this deadline if we can. So that was just my comment. Thanks.
Yeah. In answer to Jay's question, the preliminary design work that was done by, at that time, Baker Design Consultants proposed doing three things. One, raising the elevation of the road to reduce the incidence of flooding. It would not totally eliminate the potential for flooding. Second, and that includes the parking area as well. Second, to rebuild the boat launch, because once you raise the grade of the road, you would have to reconfigure the boat launch. So it includes a new boat launch. And third, it included the possibility of some wave attenuation improvements, particularly on the south side, where there's that long distance southwest fetch coming into that property. So that was the three pieces. And so that was done. There was a pretty detailed analysis of what the timing implications would be for not being able to use the boat launch under the current configuration based upon tides and what have you. So
Mark,
most
Mark,
of the homework is there.
Mark, could you speak a little bit louder or turn up your mic?
Oh, sorry. Yep, I'll try. Better?
Yes, much better.
It was for a minute, and then you leaned back again.
That lean back syndrome that does it all the time. I did make a mistake before. If you did want to look at that grant, it's on the environmental page under resilience, climate resilience. That, you click on
Oh,
that.
the original one.
The original
Oh,
grant
okay,
is
so
there. I have it up now. I still haven't come up with, did you come up with the amount?
I did. I did not.
It was 172,000 with a,
Was there original 2016?
yeah. It was 30% construction contingency. 39,000 construction, 172,1. I would assume that's at least doubled, if not more.
Okay, so still within what we could match.
What we can match. It would be similar, the grant we got, what they did on Garrison Cove was in the 350,000 for that.
I think it's also worth pointing out, for you don't know, at some point in the last 10 years, the town had the opportunity to buy some abutting land to Lookout Point.
Oh, really?
So it increased the parking and a little bit more turnaround area. So the town already has, this is, recent investments in this is because it is active, both commercial and recreation landing.
That's a good point.
And the landing, I think they mentioned about raising it. Right now, I think it's a little bit too shallow. So I think by raising the surface, the slope of the ramp would actually be improved.
That had something to do with the size of boats, wasn't it?
That, I think it can increase the size of boats we use.
You have good pictures to
Yeah.
accompany the.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, my understanding of the situation is that the ramp and the shore is so flat that it's hard to get boats off of a trailer and onto a trailer because you don't have any deep water pitch to put them on and off the trailer.
And Jake, to your point, Town Lands has been taking pictures, well, Ken has been taking pictures there for about the last year now, haven't you? Or
I think we have several years.
Yeah.
Several
Yeah.
years, yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Which will be good.
And I think we have both the flooding ones, but I think what may also be relevant is how the recent storms have degraded the ramp and other parts of the landing. There may be some erosion to the north, I'm not sure, but I'll try to dig out pictures for that.
And I'm thinking as we go forward, it's going to be important for our story to be really compelling. And we can start a draft. And I'd like a few people like Jay and Deirdre and Ken, whoever, Peter, if we could circulate this draft, and if you can think of things that would add to what we're trying to show to make this viable, I think that would go a long way for us to get this completed. As well as Ken's got pictures, and what's the other thing I was trying to think of? It would be good to get some recommendations from the people who will benefit in the area. And I would like to be able to get people here who could contact those. For example, we've got harvesters, which I'd be glad, because I'm on that committee, to contact, who use that landing. Somebody like Billy Saxton,
When I
perhaps?
say Mo's, anyone on the harbor and waterfront?
Someone on Harbor and Waterfront. If you can float this past them,
I will,
float them, oh, I love that. That
I'm
was
not going to be at the next meeting. which
You're
is
not going to be at the
week.
next meeting.
No, I'm going to be out of town, but I will send an email over to Billy
Yeah.
and Paul.
And anyone else, as we think about this, people who even use it recreationally, if we can get, I was looking at some previous ones, and they all included a number of letters of support. And
Well, I use it recreationally, I could, I don't know if that
exactly,
qualifies.
no, it does. I think we're showing this as a town facility, useful for both the working waterfront and recreation, which I think, as far as, in my mind, as far as the state's concerned, it widens the scope of the project
Right.
and makes it more desirable. Great.
Is there any problem with the house that's there, with any changes in landscape? Would there be any
I'm not sure.
opposition?
Which house are you talking about on the island?
The end one,
Yeah.
I'd be surprised, and one, cause, it would give them access, times are cut off.
Right.
Steve is his name, he's visited a couple of town lands meetings when we met there, and he seemed like he would be someone you could easily work with, and especially understanding the situation. I'd be surprised if there was pushback from him.
Do you know him? Enough to
I've met
talk to
when
him,
I've-
let him know about the project?
I can. I'll
That'd
try.
be great.
Let me dig out, see if I have contact for him. I think I might.
And the food truck, is that in?
I'm not sure. Mark, do you remember how the parking lot ties into that for the food truck in Allen's?
I do not without looking at it.
Yeah. And that's another place we talked to Allen's as well.
Yeah.
Right there, I mean, I think food truck
They
is on
were-
Allen's property, but clearly people who use the food truck will
Right.
often end up on
Yeah.
town.
I can give a reference for how good the food is.
Yeah, I mean, Allen, the parking lot at Allen's on the back side of the building is significantly higher than the low point on Lookout Point Road and the access to the boat launch. I don't know how much the elevation changes, but it's probably guessing maybe 10 or 12 feet.
But anyone in that area, I would think, it would be good for them to know about it and get a sense from what they're thinking about it, as well as a letter of support if they're willing to do that.
I think the other one might be worth reaching out to would be the shellfish wardens. 'Cause
Yes.
I've been there using recreation for kayaking out there and came back and there were actually 2 shellfish wardens there, just the way the tide was sort of starting to come in. And so they were looking for shellfish and, checking shellfish from coming back. So I think they might be able to comment on its use for commercial purposes.
I'm just trying to think. Marine Resources is not going to meet till the end of June, but we can reach out ahead of time on that.
And of course, Paul could also be,
Paul, yeah.
So for the shellfish wardens, David would, one just retired, I don't.
I have
David would
their
know.
names,
You have-
it's
basically.
Todd McGee is one. I know.
Todd McGee, and there's a new one now. I can't think of his name.
Is it Taylor Shidowitz or something?
It's a very long last name. Yeah. And, so good. So, why don't we, while Mark is getting the information, seeing if he can get information on an updated number
Yeah.
that it would cost to do the project, to update the engineering design, we can start working on the verbiage that goes with it.
And say, so should we be taking a look through and seeing, like I look through areas where I could contribute to it, whether it's
Yes.
based on knowledge of use or pictures or whatever?
That would be great, because everything, I'm pretty sure this is the whole application, as I recall. And it's an online form, so basically, and then I believe it also, I don't know if it gives points here or not, but basically, you can see by looking through this, what kind of information we want to supplement and tie into as the benefits. And like you said, Ken, as you start looking through it and come up with, and anyone,
And
we'll start a draft going around then.
at the meeting on this, the first one anyway, I think there were clues in there. There are always clues about.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, this does too, but language and what they're looking.
I'm sorry, what meeting are you speaking of?
When they were talking about this grant.
Oh, who was talking about it?
DOT.
DOT.
Yeah.
That's right. There was, I think, I'm going to go back on the website. I
I'll
think
find
that
it.
video might be up there, if anybody is.
It was DOT and Marine Resources, Deidre.
Yeah.
I can check my notes.
Could you do that? That would be great. Because I'm getting these confused because there's so many of them coming through now under Maine DOT and adaptation that I'm getting the grants confused.
Well, I'm assuming this is the one I'm talking about, but maybe I'm
Well, we'll see.
not. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have a plan. And Christie was quite concerned, she can't overload the staff anymore because there's so much happening right now. And that's why I thought if we could lend a hand, it would seem to be a shame to let the opportunity go by. So, okay.
What are the due
Mary Ann?
dates again?
I'm sorry, it's due on July 1st. 12 o'clock. on July 1st.
AM or PM? I just was going to ask if you wanted to summarize who's going to be doing what. It sounds like you're putting a team together.
Yeah. So we're going to have, why doesn't everybody tell me what they're going to do and then we can write it down?
My first thought would, I'd like to do a little more careful pass-through questions, and I can say, would probably send out, okay, should be able to contribute to item C, F, G, whatever, and at least, and give a quick summary of what I do, and then start research getting it together, but I think with a quick pass, I should at least say where areas that I would add
That would be
to that.
great, because I think you and your committee have the most knowledge of all of us sitting here of that
For-
particular
yeah, and it's
spot.
one we have actively worked with for a good while.
Yeah, that would be good. And Jay?
Well, I'll find my notes
Mm-hmm.
and see what I can apply. I think referring to the sustainability plan,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. I mean, same thing as Ken was saying, I would need to look at it.
I
but-
think once you read this, you can get
Yeah.
ideas will come to you.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it is a little intimidating, but I guess that's, most of these are.
But I think we can make the case that multiple uses definitely was injured. It's an important
Exactly.
area, so we need to build the resiliency, which is what this would help.
And I think you're on the right track there with
Yeah.
that, because that's what they're looking for
Yeah.
out of this grant.
Yeah. I'm remembering the summary, the workshop that they provided. There are lots of questions about what if we don't have the final numbers on the engineering, but we have it. Well, you're going to get it.
We'll have something pretty close.
We have something at least still.
Yeah, so that's, puts you in good shape, too.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Uh,
Tim wants to speak.
Tim?
Excuse me, great. I was going to say a couple other things about Lookout Point that are going to be worth, I think,
Yeah,
worth
here you go.
mentioning. Is that
Tim,
Is that-
you're not coming in very loudly at all. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes,
Hello? Can you hear me?
yes,
any
that's better.
Okay. A couple other things about Lookout Point that are important is, of course, there is, Allen's Seafood, which has been selling there for a long time as the working waterfront. Of course, now there's also the food truck that's there. They've upgraded to try to have it be a place where there's even a little bit of an, local educational thing where you can have a sea, fish and various other things, little petting pool.
Yeah.
So they've really tried to increase the effectiveness of that point as a place for Harpswell to attract more tourism and support the working waterfront. And as we know, I've got a great photo of the whole place underwater as well. And I think in the context of trying to increase education, outreach, support all these other different things, there must be a way to weave some of those other small business efforts that are going on there into this proposal.
Adding on to that, some verbiage about the culture, the tradition of the working waterfront, and people coming and using the water.
I mean,
Just be careful, because the hook in terms of being eligible for the grant is transportation, transportation infrastructure. So the other things about what it does for Allen's or whatever is important to weave into the story, but the focus is on maintaining the usability of Lookout Point Road, leading to the usability of the boat launch.
Good point. Very good point.
So, Abby,
Rose, do you know how many of the boat launches around town were affected by the January storms? Because I know the Potts Point
Potts Point
public
was
dock
just-
got
yeah,
destroyed.
the launch itself didn't take the brunt of the damage, but the
The
town
launch
pier.
isn't
The launch is
usable
still,
anymore,
needs a
though.
lot of repair. It's got a huge hole in it that
Mhm.
needs to be fixed. That's the only one I'm really aware of.
The only, the
'Cause you could make
Graveyard
mesh-
Point landing, which is not really, it's primarily used for either very small boats or
Yeah.
like carry boats,
Yeah.
kayak. That was pretty significant damage that's been repaired, but that's generally not listed as one of the main landings in town.
The other
Right.
landings were more or less more protected than Potts Point was. It was right at the end of the whole thing came right up there, so.
the other
Because that could
thing
be
is,
another point to make, how several other town boat launches were damaged significantly in the storm, so that increases the need to get other town boat launches
Mhm.
functioning.
because actually, the one thing that makes this project doable is the fact that we did not use disaster funds on it.
It did
Does that
not
would
what?
disqualify it? We did not use any disaster
Yeah,
funds on
any
Lookout
FEMA
Point.
funds.
Or FEMA funds. They were not covered by insurance, and no other emergency, in other words, no funding had been done on this as a result of the storm that the town got reimbursed for. So, and to your point, I like the point, though, about we have a lot of others.
That-
Because
that were
graveyard, I
impacted.
think, is something that is getting some kind of, through another grant process. Okay. Should we will get started on this?
And I'm happy to review drafts or do
Yeah,
whatever
Which
is
would be
left
great,
over.
which would be great. And we'll start by getting, if you got ideas while this is fresh in your mind, start writing stuff. I mean,
Okay.
I will eventually put all this together, but I don't think I am going to get anything out today or tomorrow for you to respond to.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, I can get at least
So
some
whatever
fragments.
you
and
can
pieces,
start on,
get it.
we can always work from there.
And copy all of us that have volunteered or been
Or
volunteered.
just, you know,
Or told.
That's great. Thank you. Onward.
Hey, Mary Ann?
Yes?
A sidebar to this is to reinforce the importance of having SPIRA that allows the town to pursue these kind of funding opportunities that would be foreclosed if the town had to go to town meeting.
Good point.
And the fact that it could be immediately available with select
Exactly.
board approval and not town
Exactly.
meeting,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
good
I mean, this
point.
grant that was made available the end of March,
Yeah.
and the application deadline is July 1st, which means you have to be, one, prepared, and two, have access to the local match quickly.
Right. We could not have applied for this grant if we did not have the SPIRA fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
Yeah. We
Um,
got more money.
The next item I had down was the Harbor and Waterfront. I believe the Harbor and Waterfront Committee has had some additions to their committee. They've, and this goes to
Where's it coming out?
more of a town focus on the working waterfront. They have a new member by Matt Gilly, I believe.
Yeah, he's been on now for over a year.
Oh, he has been,
Yeah.
okay. Also, I'm getting a little confused now. And Jane, I'm glad you're here to help me. There are two new task forces in town. We have a marine resources,
No, aquaculture.
aquaculture task force, okay, working group. And are they working through any committee?
They are the committee.
They are the committee. So they are a committee, they're not a,
They're not a permanent committee, they're a working group.
they're a working group. Okay. And
Starting next week
starting next week,
is the
that's the committee, you're on that group. Okay. So Jay's part of that committee, of which I think there's 5 or 6. Jay is on it. 7, there is a lobsterman, there is
3 lobsters, an aquaculture,
aquaculturist.
me.
Yeah. David Wilson.
So shellfishing, basically.
Right. Okay.
Good.
This is the widescreen camera.
And, right, so we have that group, and don't we have another group, or is that the only one? I thought there was another group. No, not housing, yeah. Around water and marine stuff. Okay, I'm confused. The reason I ask is, we have an opening on this committee, which I've, recall in the beginning, Monique Coombs was on this committee, sort of as the working waterfront point person. She wasn't able to because of her schedule. So we've been trying to cover the working waterfront through various committees. We have one more opening right now, and I'm trying to get a sense is if we could be more responsive as Resiliency if we had a member of that community on this committee. And right now, it's being met through people that are on this committee. So I thought it would be good to bring it up and talk about that. I mentioned it to Mose because Harbor and Waterfront, I thought, had expanded.
Well, we're going to have, I believe, 2 new associate members.
Right.
The last meeting, we all agreed that we could do that. I mean, I think the committee, I think, is full, except.
But you could have
We
associate.
can have the associates. And I presume they've been accepted, do you know? Okay. So there will be 2 new associates, and as far as I know, they both have active waterfront experience and backgrounds. And other than that, we've got, oh Lord, well, besides Matt, we've got
Got Billy.
Scott Merriman.
Oh, Scott, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And
So we
Billy
have-
at Saxton.
Huh?
And Saxton's. Billy Saxton.
And Billy, yeah, oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So we've got people that are experienced and working on the waterfront, and we have been, I don't want to say delaying, we keep getting it bumped out of the agenda, is work on a working waterfront definition and description, which is also being done through other parts of the town organization. So that was something that Matt Gillies brought up, that we ought to really be able to define what it means and how we're dealing with it and what it actually is, so that when people come along and want to buy waterfront property and tear down and then put off the grid, we can have a reason for not allowing that sort of thing. I mean, it's not supposed to be an enforceable kind of deterrence. It's just that we need to be able to say that this doesn't conform to what the working waterfront concept in Harpswell is. So I don't know when we're going to get back to that, because things keep happening and we keep getting it bumped off the agenda. So,
And I guess my question I'm asking now is, do you think that that working waterfront need will be served well through the representatives of those committees that are here now? Or do you think it would be good to have another working waterfront person on the committee if they were?
it probably wouldn't hurt. I don't know that we need to, I don't think we need to get anybody else from the Harbor Waterfront Committee, but another altogether different person who would be willing to do that and join this committee with that kind of background, I think would be very helpful.
Another thing that we've been sort of handling under social vulnerability, Jay's sort of been the point person for HA, but it had come up previously, social vulnerability comes through with the fishing community as well.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking that that might be something that we sort of don't think about as much when we're talking about it here, although Jay does. So that's what is bringing up the conversation today.
Well, and I think, that's a real area of expertise for Monique.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, she can't do everything,
exactly.
but perhaps asking her for a suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
who else she thinks, I mean, you need somebody who's willing to do it, but not just working waterfront, but, well, working waterfront and the nuances.
The nuances.
Thereof.
I just think that that person might be more attuned to be looking for areas that this committee could be particularly helpful in for them.
Yeah.
It's a good point. We'll get in touch with Monique and see if she can.
Abby might have some ideas too. I mean, I'm thinking of some people. I don't have any idea if they're interested, but we could
Who?
put our heads together. Well, one is the person who's going to be on the aquaculture, so probably
Okay.
not. But
Mhm.
I think of a daughter of a person
Mhm.
might be good.
Mhm.
At the comp plan big idea meeting on a working
Mhm,
waterfront, which was so exciting, in my opinion. One of the topics was, at least at my table, was what is the working waterfront? I mean, there's a definition, but it's not the way we think about
Yeah,
it.
that's the
And there's-
nut of the issue, what does it actually mean?
Yeah, and also what's designated working waterfront is not the way people in the working water, I mean, they work lots of places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just those little areas. So it was a discussion point that
Mhm.
wasn't resolved, but I think.
It is not a simple
Great.
topic
No.
to address and resolve.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a state definition, if there's any conflict
We
there.
haven't got that far yet.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jay. You and I've talked about this since we started this committee. Because one of the things when we were looking at the resiliency and vulnerability, they kept talking about the working waterfront and how you could respond to that. And we're sitting saying, well, it's not public, we were sort of trying to figure out how to address it as well.
Let's put it on Moses' agenda.
I think that's a good idea.
Number one. I think it's important, and, I mean, it speaks to what Harpswell is.
Yeah. Well, maybe this has time. Oh,
Well,
a
Abby.
hand.
Okay. I have to speak into the microphone to what, under 10 people. I just wanted to say that a big issue with the working waterfront vulnerability in Harpswell is that, I have the lean back syndrome, is that most of the most socially vulnerable don't live in Harpswell. So the sternmen, the harvesters now, a lot of them will jet in from, as far away as like Gardiner and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think most of the fishermen who actually live in Harpswell are fairly economically doing pretty all right. They're usually the owners of their business. But the more vulnerable people, the sternmen, the dock workers, that sort of stuff.
How would you think we could reach them on this committee? Any ideas?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's whether or not that would be a
It's a good point.
focus
No, it's a
of the
good point.
committee.
Yeah.
Where that form of vulnerability is in the workers of this town, but not in the residents of this town. So.
At the same time, really good point, but vulnerability in a broader sense, the risk of the right whale rules, the destruction of wharfs, I mean, that's impacting both. Any changes in licensure affects, can I get a stern man? I mean, there are so many aspects to what vulnerability means, but I mean, in terms of income, I think that's just part of it, but maybe, I don't know, can somebody who's not living here be on the committee? I don't know.
I just want to say social vulnerability is what we're talking about,
Yeah.
not economic vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know what the this committee has done to define the scope of that yet,
We haven't.
or the priority to
Yeah.
put onto that, so maybe including that as you go forward.
Yeah.
Updating the 2-year
Social
plan.
vulnerability is the one thing that is mentioned in the sustainability plan, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Moses committee
Going to become really busy.
should. He's not objecting.
I didn't hear what you said, so it's okay. You people are gonna whisper, I'm not gonna hear anything.
Oh, God.
Okay. Well, I think it's the start of a good conversation about this. I don't know that we're going to resolve this tonight, but be interesting for you to take it back to your committees and talk to them about it too, especially Harbor and Waterfront.
Get something out to them tonight.
Okay. All right.
One more thing.
Yes.
I think the aquaculture working group won't start till next week, and it's, the first week will be just administrative, really.
Mhm.
But thinking of vulnerability, the concern about aquaculture, what, the pressure,
Mhm.
I mean, well, I guess, it's economic vulnerability, but it's social as well, because if you lose your ability to make a living, and it affects your family and your health.
Mhm.
My mind compartmentalizes, but I think for Harpswell, the relationship between the harvesters and the shorefront property owners and the change in that would be the issue that,
Yeah, absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
my definition in my mind,
Yeah.
partial definition.
Yeah.
That would be a core thing.
Yeah. It's so intertwined, because that makes me think about our airboats,
Mhm.
you know, access airboats.
Another aspect of it too is, what we're working on, it also getting bumped down our agenda all the time, is reexamination of the water classification map that we have as to what's going on in what area, because it all changes throughout the year. And the aquaculture applications and licensing are not supposed to occur in areas where there's a lot of busy activity, fishing and all that kind of thing. And every once in a while, one will slip through, and it hasn't been updated, I don't know how many years now since it was first done, but it's another big project. It's essentially like a water zoning project. I mean, the word classification to me doesn't really apply very well, but we need to re-examine that and find out who's using what areas, because most of the applications say they've noticed, had not noticed any active fishing going on in that area. But then someone will come in and tell us, oh yeah, well, I go in there, I fry lobster every year, but not every day, all year, but from time to time. They follow the lobsters around, the same with the pokey fishermen. They go where the fish go. So, say that it's a classified area for one particular type of activity, excluding all others, doesn't necessarily apply as we might have thought it used to do. Because when that map was drawn, I think the aquaculture business was still in its infant stages, if it had even had begun at that point.
Right.
So there is going to be a fair amount of headbutting about that from people who don't want to see aquaculture there because it's going to interfere with their livelihoods.
Mose, would you move the microphone closer to you, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's close enough.
Yeah, it's so much better.
One of the, I think what you're talking about is going to be an outcome of the aquaculture.
Yeah, should be.
It's an offer that's on the table. One of the people on the committee has said, I'll map the fishing areas. I
Mhm.
won't. So that, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
Directly to your point. So hopefully that
Right.
will happen.
Yeah, because even though the limited, the LPAs are, I think, 40 feet, so I forget the exact dimensions of them, they have to put floats at each corner to identify where they are. But, the floats move with the current. And so somebody you would think that if you just take out that section of the water bottom, nobody can put a trap in there because it's an aquaculture cage there. But they put something too close to it, or it drags, whatever, it's going to get tangled. So the actual set off of the 4 buoys should include space outside that line. And that creates a fair amount of controversy sometimes.
Okay, well, this will be a good conversation, I think, once you get started with that committee or that group.
Well, one more thing.
Yeah,
I've said this 3 million times, but what I love about this committee is the representation from so many, harbor, technology, lands, right? Everything.
Conservation among other.
And conservation, yeah. So we get a broader view. We're not siloed so much.
it's worked out really well, I think, because we all have our pets and our points of view from the committees we're on. But we're able to talk through them and really learn a lot, I think. Like, I just learned about this committee tonight from you. I'm sorry, it's not a committee, it's a working,
It's hot off the presses.
hot off the press. Well, more to come on that. It's now 5 o'clock. Before I move on to sustainability plan, Howie, I got you at the bottom. Did you have anything to bring up today? I didn't get to you ahead of time, but didn't know if I'm missing something with your committee.
I could just do a couple of real quick updates.
That would be great.
Do you want me to do that now?
Why don't you?
Okay.
Why don't we just get that
So,
out of the way?
the revision did send us a proposal. Is that what that sign means?
That means move the microphone closer to you.
Close, close, close.
Oh, it slides so easily.
Can I butt in just for a second? I apologize, but I'm going to have to leave the call. So
Okay,
my
Bye.
apologies, but thank you for a good discussion so far.
okay.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank-
Tim,
thanks, Tim.
for your input.
Bye-bye.
I think so.
There's revisions proposal for Mitchell Field. They did send something in writing addressed to the select board. And then we also have a proposal for the HVAC for this building, which there's going to be a workshop on Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Okay, that's right.
I'm hoping we will learn a lot more at that because it's quite lacking in detail. So I'm hoping at the workshop we'll learn a lot more about it. But it does contain proposals for several different possibilities for this building. And so we'll learn about that on Thursday, and then the committee will take it up on next Tuesday.
And just to refresh my memory, that was money that was coming out of the infrastructure fund, nothing that was part of the building grants that we did through GoPIF here, right?
The work that was done here is related to that. It has to do with improving the outside of the building, the envelope of the building. This is the heating and ventilation, which, as they point out, is 20 years old and largely reached its reasonable lifetime, so it's time to redo it, and it needs a lot of work. And so this is a plan to figure out what the best way to do it is. I think the money for this has been set aside over the last few years out of the town's budget. I mean, there's a
It was
reserve
a
fund.
town meeting item, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Right,
I was
and-
just trying to make sure that I kept.
It's the two major choices in the thing that they sent us. One of them, they say, qualifies for a relatively small incentive from Efficiency Maine, and the other one does not qualify for a much larger one, and it's not clear what they meant by it almost. I think what they're saying is it almost qualified, and so I want to find out more about what would make it qualify, because that one was a much more substantial incentive, but then they said, but it won't qualify for it, so. They didn't say, like I said, the whole thing is lacking in detail, and I thought it'd be nice if they explained more about that.
Right, I just pulled out the agenda. The revision project is on the agenda for this week's select board.
For the regular
So if
meeting.
anybody,
Right.
Okay.
yeah, their proposal will be presented one way or the other. Anybody wants to hear it?
Thank you.
Okay.
At the last meeting, we started to talk about the sustainability plan. And the minutes had a lot of detail about what we discussed. What I know is that, what do I know? I know that we need to get something updated in September. So we need to start, we got to start figuring out what we want to, we have to sort of show what we've done and what we want to focus on. Mark has sent some things across earlier, which I don't have in front of me right now, having to do with finishing up the work on the building that we got funds for the building envelope, and then the implementation of the installation of what has to be done regarding windows and insulation, et cetera. Christie had said that she thought a lot of that could have been paid out of maintenance. Some of it may have to come out of Spira, depending on what the budget has. So it's something in our sustainability plan we have to, would be good to address, I think, and keep in it. I don't know if anybody's even thought about what we talked about at the last meeting, and aside from the minutes that have quite a bit of detail in it. I'm not sure if we want to take that on at this late time.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
there's one item on my list that I put there, and I would say I condition this list on sort of just throwing things out for you all and the staff to sort of wade through and say what's realistic, etc. The one item that's on here is the issue of the energy efficiency of other buildings. And I'm not sure, I don't know enough about them, whether that's really an issue, but my understanding, Jane, is that the town actually owns the TV station building. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And then there's also the EMS building. And I don't know exactly what's happening with the recycling center, but it would seem that looking at those buildings in terms of both what the building envelope, heating systems, and lighting is, would be a logical step. But as I said, I don't know enough about their current situation, what, if anything, has been done, what the life expectancy of those buildings are. But it seems that's the, I was going to say simplest, but maybe the most easiest to reduce the town's carbon footprint as a next step. And I'm sure Ken knows all about those buildings.
I can tell you the lot and property map number, but that's probably about the extent of it.
And anyhow, it just seems that there are, we've got 2 or 3 other buildings, facilities that doing the same thing we did at the town office could make sense if they're buildings that we're going to keep for the long term.
And that was a fairly reasonable evaluation that was done, wasn't it? As I recall? The biggest part of our first grant was for changing the LED lights in the building. A
Right.
small portion of that was for the building envelope, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I would say
That
that
was
was
pretty
less
significant.
than
Was it?
successful, but this might be an area where energy and technology and Howie and his committee could at least look at that and say, are there opportunities for energy reduction, switching to non-fossil fuel? I don't know whether heat pumps would make sense in those buildings or not, but those might be some of the sorts of things we might look at.
Sound interesting, Howie?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about some of those buildings that, just briefly. The transfer station building up there apparently uses an inordinate amount of electricity because it's not well insulated and has a bunch of electric space heaters in it. There's things like that. I mean, the EMS building has a bunch of heat pumps. I think it's new enough that I think those were probably its original source of heat. I don't know.
I think it was. It's not that, no, they're not that old.
Yeah, you can see them out.
Right. But, I think that the focus was on this building for a couple of reasons, one of which, mostly that it's a much bigger energy consumer as far as, the heating. Recycling center has a lot of equipment, which is probably taking up some of, that's where its energy consumption goes. But, yeah, I mean, we could look at those too.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it because the sustainability plan, there's a certain amount that we want to keep focusing on saving energy, which is kind of the first focus in the sustainability plan. And we can probably as long as we can keep thinking about that. And
Well, I think that another thing is that this workshop on Thursday, if they answer a bunch of my questions, we'll
Right.
have a better idea of whether that sort of conversion makes sense. What I can't tell from what they sent us, it doesn't really go into, this is what you were consuming before, and this is how much CO2 you were generating with the oil-powered heating system, and this is what it will be afterwards. And there's no comparison in there. It's just
Right.
a bunch of numbers about what it'll be afterwards, but no comparison
right.
with beforehand. So I hope to put some pressure on them to get us that information, because that will help us decide.
Good.
And if we see that, then, I mean, I don't know how directly that would project onto the other buildings, but, that would be, that would at least give us some idea of what improvements available in this building.
Sounds good. Jay?
Well, and we have, it's due September, so we'll know more, but I wonder, Mark, are you saying, have something in there that says we'll continue to look at that? It doesn't have to be, maybe it'll be more specific,
It doesn't have to be.
but just.
Well, I think, Jay, my answer is I think the first step is to look at the 3 buildings in just a very, I would call it preliminary basis and say, are these buildings ones that should be considered for some kind of improvements to reduce their carbon footprint?
Right.
And then if they are, then putting something in the sustainability plan about going through the steps of evaluating their energy use, heating, building envelope insulation, and whether it makes sense to invest money in improvements to reduce energy use. I mean, realistically, the improvements, the building envelope improvements that are proposed to be made to the town office building mostly reflect efforts to improve the comfort of the building for people who work in it or come to meetings in it.
Cooling and warming too.
Hmm?
Cooling and warming too.
Yeah, but less about energy reduction. The energy payback of some of the improvements is fairly long, but any of you who have been around any length of time know that on cold days there probably are 10 or a dozen space heaters running on because of the cold temperatures adjacent to the walls and along the floor because of lack of or improperly insulated surfaces. And so that's what's there. So I mean, I just put that out there that those are 2 or 3 facilities that we should probably do a preliminary assessment on to see if there's a need to do something, and if there is, then to put some actions in the sustainability plan and look for some money to do it.
Well, and I think this, unlike the first plan, this is the second plan.
Mm-hmm.
So continue to,
Right, exactly.
so those kinds of things. And
Yeah.
I think, there's a lot of, there's been a lot of discussion about water, including from me whining about it. But the continue to do the education piece
Mhm.
with the Conservation Commission. It's the building, but it's also the citizenry or the
Mhm.
residents.
Yeah.
And that's also continuation.
Mhm. One area that we have sort of not met as well as we've been trying, and it was a request by the people who came to our first meeting, was to have more consumer information available. I mean, we're working on it,
Yeah.
but to have more consumer information available to the public. And that's something I think we have to continue to
Yeah.
give more attention to, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, and through multiple means,
Mhm.
website, which has been updated and continues to be updated, Facebook, and then events and flyers and.
More events, we had that one event that was given by, I can't think of the group's name, Tony's. Hmm?
Citizens Climate Law.
The Citizens Climate Lobby. A very good presentation that unfortunately nobody came to.
Yeah.
But I think, we very well for our committee to maybe pursue having that given again in the fall for the public. But and Nancy's not here, but those are areas that we need to, I think, have more intersection with the public on.
Yeah.
Just a thought that came to mind as we were discussing that question. I wonder if there's any way to structure educating the community on all of the things, the water, conservation in other areas, how to know a good appliance or something like that. If there are any opportunities for grant support to do that in a way where we could see that makes any difference.
Pre and post test?
I don't know
Sure.
what it would be, but CCL comes, but nobody comes to hear. how do we have an effective communication strategy where people do, and that's a project in itself. And that we need to have resources behind it.
That plus, we do have a new communications person.
Don't even think about that yet. Excuse me.
Well,
The committees can
It's
do
up
it.
to a 20, no, I'm not saying committees, it's up to a 20-hour-a-week position. And that person has in-house projects, like the
Okay.
website and so on and
Okay.
so forth. So I'm suggesting potentially there's an opportunity for a special project. And it might include outside consultant, professional help. And how do we do effective communication
Mhm.
to educate for conservation, et cetera, et cetera?
Is there anything that's already happened through the comp plan process
well, just,
on,
there is something.
Yeah.
But it's not, well, it's sort of through the comp plan, but sort of through the Conservation Commission.
definitely through there?
We are starting in, there's a project in process. Yeah. Kevin, through the comp plan, has been in touch with, well, let me backtrack. We feel that it's really necessary to talk about water, where it comes from and how we get it, yada, yada. So our thinking is to have a really big rollout focus, where you would have the state hydrologist come down and be someone with some credentials to talk. And then the part that the Conservation Commission is, Water Witches are working on, is pulling together what to do to save water. And we're working on some handouts, trying to kind of pull this all in together to like have one big rollout. Sometime when this gentleman can make it to Harpswell, towards the end of the summer maybe. And then after that, continue to have continued outreach, because the whole water issue isn't only drinking water, it's everything that helps you keep the drinking water.
Right.
And we're thinking about something that'll go on for months through the fall to when the comp plan is voted on finally. So that's in the beginning process.
And I think, as you're talking, I'm thinking the non-resident taxpayer
Mhm,
meeting
mhm.
would be a great
Mhm.
forum.
Right.
The road associations,
Yep.
I
Oh,
think.
road association, I always forget about that.
Yeah, I think that should be, I mean, I would put it in there. It's something we've talked about, and we've said we want to do that some more. Offer.
Now, we
advice.
also have, I believe, the new intern that's here, that we just met today. Mark has suggested that maybe he could help our committees a little bit.
Mm.
Conservation Commission on the Water Witches project, which is a combination of Conservation Commission and comp plan, actually.
You could also, road associations and rental associations,
Mhm.
educating.
And this might be something, excuse me, where we could get some grant funding to have some, we put flyers together, but we always talk about that flyer that was done 20 years ago by Sea Grant as the result of the last comp plan that was funded and printed and was pretty slick.
Yeah,
There's been scuttlebutt as well,
I was gonna say.
which
It
is
just
something
came out
that was
from
coming out
Brunswick.
recently.
Yeah,
So-
that is great.
Something along that line, we would probably need some grant funding for.
Speaking of road associations, I think, Mary Ann, you did some presentations a year or two ago with the state document to support you about road maintenance and various things. And I know from a couple of road association people that got picked up, like that was of interest, and people, paid attention to that and maybe even reached out to you, with questions. So I think, the road association people are open to getting any information that they have, at least most of them, I would imagine. I know ours is, and, that the format that you did that in, including the, online show, I think was very, very effective. So that
That's
might be a
right.
good model.
And it's something we wanted to, unfortunately, these things go sort of on the back burner after you do them. And it's good to think back about how to reuse some of those things effectively.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So
5:30.
it's 5:30. I think it's time to let Deirdre stop typing. How does it feel to type for an hour and a half nonstop?
I think when anyone actually speaks out the time, that's an implicit motion to adjourn.
So in the meantime, though, I'm just going to say we will take these notes. I think we have a good start on the sustainability update, and we can start putting it together, again, massaging it with the group, and having it together by August.
I wonder if, in these minutes, the last minutes could be included, because it had a lot of ideas
Sure,
about the
yeah.
comp plan. I
Sure.
mean, not that, about
Well,
the
we can attach them again.
sustainability plan,
Yeah.
just as a reminder.
Good idea.
We have such good people taking notes now that they're so complete. They
I mean, I didn't take lots of notes because I knew you knew what to put in there. Sorry.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We'll adjourn at 5:27.